Corey. It is a Saturday, just turning afternoon here on week 2 of the NFL season. I've got my coffee. I've got a slate of games. What I need is Jimmy Champ to help me figure out what we saw in week 1 is real and what is false. Jimmy, thank you for joining me today.
Man, no place I'd rather be. It's a great way to start the Saturday. I think there may have been a lot of truth and a lot of false in week 1 for a lot of teams. So it's going to be fun to see how that affects the lines for week 2.
And let's just start quickly with what we saw on Thursday night. The Philadelphia Eagles get a pretty convincing win over the Minnesota Vikings. The final score was 34-28, but the Eagles pretty much dominated this game. That's at least how I felt about it.
Yeah, offensively, the offense wasn't quite as great as we have kind of expected the offense to be. Minnesota did turn it over 4 or 5 times, so that helped. But you know what? Great teams don't lose games like that. They didn't lose the game. So they handled their business. The defensive line is for real.
Oh yeah.
And they made it happen. The offense was good enough and they got themselves another win.
I guess dominated might be a little strong, but I do feel like they could run the ball whenever they wanted to. That defensive line is every bit as good as we thought it would be. They're just living in the backfield. And those two things aren't going to change as the season goes on. Philadelphia's passing game isn't where we expect it to be, but I think part of that is teams are gaming for that, and they're trying to take that away, which is why you see 200-yard rushing games from them against Minnesota. At some point, they're going to run into somebody that isn't going to want to let them do that, and I think that's when you'll see the offense really explode with some big plays downfield, and they had a couple big plays downfield. Yeah,
it definitely looks like early defensive coordinators have forgot how good Devonta Smith is. It seems like the game plan has been take A.J. Brown away, and Devonta Smith is feasting because of it.
Yeah, they have a lot of ways to beat you, and that's something I kind of want to touch on as we go through these games, especially when we get to Miami and the Rams games. It looks like it's becoming a lot more important now this season, and that's the ability to make the defense have to make a decision in an instant.
Yep.
It's giving them multiple looks and just throwing a bunch of shit at them, which is what was really effective against Patrick Mahomes for like those 2 months. You just throw a bunch of different looks at him, and he can't really decide which one's which.
Yep.
Philadelphia is one of those teams that can do that. And if you can do that and beat teams over the top, that makes you a Super Bowl contender in my book.
Sure does.
Well, let's now turn to where we'll end week 2 of the NFL season in Pittsburgh on Monday night, where the division-leading Cleveland Browns travel to Pittsburgh, Jimmy. We don't get to say that very often, so I guess we should take advantage of it, right?
Yep.
The Browns find themselves as, let me check my glasses, 2.5-point favorites on the road. Minus 145 for the Browns on the money line, plus 122. The over-under on this one sits at 38.5. Jimmy, I should admit to our listeners that I have not made my picks for this week yet. So as we talk through here, I'll be making my actual picks and, give a little insight into how I look at these games. Cleveland pretty much steamrolled Cincinnati after the first half, and Pittsburgh just got bulldozed by San Francisco. Any worries about a trap game for the Browns here?
There has to be, but I'm going to pretend like there's not. There has to be. There just has to be, because it's Pittsburgh and it's Mike Tomlin and it's Cleveland.
Yeah, and every time this team starts talking, they generally tend to lose.
Yeah, so, there has to be, but I think the offense, we need to see the offense be better. There is not a deep playoff run in this team until the offense either throws the ball less or throws the ball better. One of the two. Doesn't matter which. But one of those two things has to happen for them to be better. But I don't think the offense has to look any better than it did against Cincinnati to beat Pittsburgh if the defense can play as well as they did last week. At least for week 1, the front 7 was as advertised. They were incredible. Was a great game plan. I think you can put in the same game plan this week and it'd be even more dominant. Just hope we block TJ Watt. Hope we do that on the offensive end and Deshaun doesn't have to deal with the crazy TJ Watt game. But I think the Browns, to me, they should be able to win this game easily by a field goal. So I'm gonna avoid all the narratives, and I'm gonna take the Browns here, hoping they get this as a field goal at least.
The way I'm looking at this is everything we said last week about Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers being home underdogs is in play here, but that Cleveland defense looks like it's for real. And with what we saw San Francisco do to Kenny Pickett, I think there's going to be games where Kenny Pickett looks like a competent NFL quarterback, but he looks like the type of quarterback that really good to great defenses just eat up. And I think the Browns can really eat him up. They're not going to be able to push the ball downfield, which means they're going to try to spread everybody out, but that's not – Kenny Pickett doesn't really have the arm talent to get the ball to the outside, which means everybody can collapse in, means you can't run the ball. It becomes this domino effect. I think that's what's in store for Pittsburgh. That's what I saw last week. That's what I thought would be in store for him this year. I'm going to take the Browns. They might win this game by a touchdown. I think they're that much better than this Pittsburgh team. Wow, I can't believe I just said that. I do like the under. This doesn't seem like the type of game where you're going to see a lot of points. As far as the offense goes, I talked to you on Thursday. I heard Mary Kay earlier this week do a hit on 92.3, and you could hear the sort of feeling that she'd been had, because she's been a huge water carrier for Deshaun Watson, talking about how he's an elite quarterback. Every time she would mention him, she would have to say elite quarterback, and now she's got egg on her face because that dude can't stop skipping passes. And that can't be what this offense looks like. And, of course, in true Browns fashion, he does finally throw a really good timing pattern to David Bell that just bounces right off his hands.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely, which made me really sad because, I want to see David Bell be good. I liked his talent coming out. I want to see him be good, but he's got to make that catch. Yeah, it was weird because you had, Mary Kay was frustrated. The fans in the stadium were frustrated. They were actually booing on some of the passes. The Ken Carman show, as we talked about, the Ken Carman show kind of talked about how people seem to be totally okay giving Deshaun a grace period that we weren't okay giving Baker, which is kind of weird considering what you gave up to get Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Like Baker only cost 1 first-round draft pick, not 3, and all that guaranteed money, and the huge cap hit next year. So it's kind of weird. But I do think, if that defense plays like it played last week, Deshaun might not have to be elite, but he's got to stop skipping passes. They're going to have to be able to sustain some drives when, for whatever reason, Kevin Stefanski decides Nick Chubb needs a rest.
He missed Goodwin, twice, 3 times
Twice.
on deep balls? And
Twice.
I can already hear the Watson defenders, the weather. Yeah, well, guess what? He plays for the Cleveland fucking Browns. We live in Cleveland, Ohio. That's the weather. You're going to play at least one game in Pittsburgh. You're going to play at least one game in Baltimore. And you're going to play at least one game in Cincinnati. So that's 10 games. That's, when they eventually go to 17, that'll be 12 games of the season.
Yep.
But that's a huge chunk of your schedule that you're going to play in poor weather. And you're just going to have to get used to that shit.
Yep.
I already know the answer to this question. So, I'll ask the question anyway. Does Kevin Stefanski have the discipline to hand the ball off to Nick Chubb 20 times to win this game?
No.
Yeah. That's what scares me, is that they're going to try to force passes instead of trying to more ease him in. Well, I don't even know if there's any easing him in. He just hasn't been throwing the ball well.
Yeah. Like I said, they either have to throw it less or he's got to throw it better. Those are, if this is the game plan is, Nick Chubb early, try to catch a couple explosive plays, and then have a few series where Ford's the guy and we're going to spread it out and try to sling it, then Deshaun Watson has to throw the ball better. Now, like I said, I don't think it stops them this week. I don't think it stops them against Pittsburgh. I think they're fine against Pittsburgh. But at some point, I do think you're going to have a game where Watson's going to have to be able to throw the football. Deshaun Watson's just got to play better. There's going to be times where they're not going to be able to just run the ball. There are going to be teams that are going to make that choice to sell out and stop Nick Chubb, and they're going to have to be able to throw the football. And right now, I don't believe they have that in them, but they're still going to get to 2-0 with it, hopefully, an easy 3 or 7 point victory against Pittsburgh.
Man, I'm really curious to see what Deshaun Watson looks like and how he handles the booing.
Yep.
Oh, and I heard he's doing a weekly podcast now, which, if we're going to talk about the hypocrisy of holding, like if Baker had done that, people would have lost their fucking minds.
Yep.
It would have been a lead story for like 2 months.
Yep.
It's just like popped up out of nowhere, and everybody seems to be fine with it, even after a pretty dreadful performance. He's got to at least be okay.
Yes.
Before he's going to get any slack from the fans. It's just what happens when he has a really bad game where they lose because of him.
Yep.
How does he respond to that?
Yep. I'm going to go on a limb and say poorly, but I guess we'll wait and see.
That's kind of how I'm leaning on that one, is poorly. Well, let's move to the other game in the division where we see the Cincinnati Bengals hosting the Baltimore Ravens. The Bengals are 3-point favorites, minus 170 for them on the money line. The Ravens are plus 143. Over-under sits at 46.5. Jimmy, Cincinnati didn't really look like they wanted to play much last week. They kind of got, I don't know, it looked like they came out of halftime and they were like, fuck, it's cold, it's rainy, I'm getting hit a lot, this sucks.
Yep.
But on the other hand, Baltimore beat what looks like a pretty bad Houston team. They couldn't get their offense going, which was Cincinnati's defense actually played well. How are you looking at this game? Who do you think comes out on top?
Well, Baltimore, they lost Dobbins. Andrews is still dinged up, and they had a few minor injuries on the defensive side. I want to lean towards Baltimore at +3 and the money line at +50. But I think I'm going to expect Cincinnati to bounce back here. I think I'm going to take Cincinnati. The 3 kind of feels like a push either way. So I'd probably like the money line for Baltimore. But I just think, like, you've already got uncertainty in the backfield. Is it Gus Edwards? Is it Justin Hill? What's Melvin Gordon got left? What's it? Because their offense did. I mean, I think Houston's defense played better than people thought they would. But Baltimore's offense looked weird, looked out of sorts. And I agree with you. Like, the sentiment seemed to be Cincinnati just kind of gave up. It really felt like they gave up early in that game. So I'm going to take Cincinnati here. I think this is a very telling game for both teams. I really do. Like, if Baltimore can kind of put a beating on Cincinnati like Cleveland did, I don't know if Cincinnati can necessarily go 0-2 and still win the division. Like, I was very confident in that a few weeks ago, and I'm not sure if I still am. So I think this is a very important game, a very good game, but I think Cincinnati's going to take it.
Here's just a random thought that popped into my head. Everybody was expecting Buffalo to fall back just on the general idea that it's tough to be good every single year. Is Cincinnati maybe falling into that a little bit?
It's very possible.
A little tougher schedule this year than last year.
Yep.
Burrow's banged up. It just these little things. They've been there a lot. It looked like they didn't want to get up for that game in Cleveland. I wonder what this game's going to look like, because if Cincinnati struggles offensively early, do they kind of just like meh? They just meh it in?
Right.
It's just tough to think that Cincinnati, as good as they are, would go 0-2, but we saw it just last year.
Yeah.
So I think I'm with you. I like Baltimore here. Man, I like the under. I don't think that Baltimore offense is right. I don't think that Cincinnati's offense is as explosive and right as it should be, especially against this Baltimore defense. I mean, 46.5 is a big number, man. That's two teams getting into the 20s, and this is an AFC North game. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, no, I like the under there for sure.
Wow, Cincinnati 0-2 again, with Cleveland possibly being 2-0 with Baltimore. Those two teams play in Week 4.
Yeah.
Ooh, it'd be fun for there to be a Browns Ravens game that actually has some meaning.
Yes.
Up next, we have what many call the game of the week. Although there's quite a few good games this week. There's a lot of good teams playing each other, a lot of bad teams playing each other. That usually makes for a good week of football. But we have the Kansas City Chiefs traveling to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. The Chiefs are 3-point road favorites, minus 178 on the money line for them, plus 150 on the money line for the Jaguars. 51 is the over-under. Looks like we will see Chris Jones and Travis Kelce in this game for Kansas City. We saw this game about 8 months ago. Kansas City came out on top on their route to a Super Bowl win. Can Jacksonville switch that outcome, Jimmy?
Yeah, I mean, this is a prime time, big time, week 2, end of season consequences AFC game here. I'm very interested to see what the Chiefs offense looks like after Dropapalooza last week. I'm taking the Jags at plus 3.5, and I really like a lot of my other bets, so I think I'm going to throw something at the plus 150 on the Jags money line as well.
Ooh. I think
But
the offense will be fine, but I wonder how Chris Jones is going to hold up without conditioning, without training camp. I mean, we saw guys last week that have been in training camp and constantly working out, getting tired. So not being in a game shape from missing all of preseason and training camp. I think this is the type of game that's probably pretty close, and I think Jacksonville pulls it out in the end. I like them to win this game too.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of people a lot higher on Detroit than me. So there are a lot of people that think the Chiefs defense is going to be okay even without Chris Jones because how they kind of dominated that game. I mean, they lost, but it wasn't because of the defense. Like defensively, they played a really good game, but I think the Jags are just significantly better than Detroit. And I think the Jags are going in the right direction. I think they're doing the right things. They've got 4 to 5 really good offensive weapons, and I don't think Kansas City can stop all of them.
I think the Chiefs' defense was fine last week. I don't think they were great. I don't think they were bad. They gave up 118 on the ground. Jared Goff went 22 of 35 for 253 and a touchdown. They sacked him once. No picks. You know, that's for Jared Goff outside of a dome. That's actually a pretty solid game for him. This isn't Jared Goff, though.
Nope.
It's not Jared Goff in the elements that he's not at his best. This is Trevor Lawrence. Calvin Ridley looked like he has not missed a step at all.
Nope.
I like Jacksonville here. I like Jacksonville to win. I like the over because I think Kansas City is going to be able to score. Well, every time we see Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes on the field together, they score points. So why would I expect?
Yeah, why would this be any different? Yeah.
A team that put up just a ton of points last week was the Miami Dolphins. They are now traveling to New England to take on Bill Belichick, Mac Jones, and the 0-1 Patriots. The Dolphins are 2.5-point road favorites, minus 145 on the money line. Patriots are plus 122. Over-under sits at 46.5. Jimmy, we keep seeing it when Mike McDaniel has his full complement of offensive players. That team's really fucking scary, and I'm starting to think, well, I guess I shouldn't say I'm starting. I think the team I thought Baltimore would be is who Miami is because they look really tough, and I think they're going to look really tough for a stretch of games here.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what we talked about in our AFC East preview. As long as they keep Tua upright and healthy, the Dolphins are a very, very good team. New England played better than I think I thought they would last week. Ramondre Stevens looked pretty good. A lot of dump-offs for Mac Jones to be expected. But to me, this is easy. Give me the Dolphins here at -3. They're just the better team. I think it just comes down to that. I don't think there's enough of a discrepancy anywhere to think the Patriots are going to keep this to under 3 points. I think it's a pretty easy one.
A lot of people pimping Mac Jones after his multi-touchdown performance. I think that Eagles secondary can be had a little bit, and I also think they were playing with at least a little bit of a lead there. Maybe got a little lax. We see that very frequently in the NFL, even from good teams.
Yep.
This feels like it'll be a much closer game, but Miami just has so many weapons right now. Everybody's healthy. Tyreek Hill is every bit as uncoverable as Justin Jefferson. I mean, and this is one of those things that I see Mike McDaniel and Kyle Shanahan do, and even Sean McVay, that I wish I saw more of from Kevin Stefanski. And maybe Stefanski's doing this and the quarterback's just skipping the ball 10 yards in front of his receiver. They are just scheming guys open. And then they're putting layers on top of that where they know they can scheme their guys open, and then they're putting them in position to just beat their dudes one-on-one like they do with Tyreek Hill. And it's like, okay, we're going to put you in an advantageous position, and then we're just going to have you run by somebody because we know you can.
Yep.
Just really playing to the strengths of what they do. Bill Belichick does that as well, but I just don't think they have the weaponry on offense to keep up with this Miami team.
Yeah, me either.
The team Miami put a hurting on offensively is the LA Chargers, who their offense looked plenty fine as well. The LA Chargers are traveling to Tennessee. They are also 2.5-point road favorites. -140 on the money line for the Chargers, +118 for the Titans. Over-under sits at 45.5. Man, the Chargers really chargered up that game last week, Jimmy, and Tennessee really Ryan Tannehill'd up that game last week. Feels like two forces of incompetence are coming together here. It feels like we might see something special in this game.
Yeah, I don't think I feel the same way. The Chargers found a way to charger and lose to one of the most silly regular season catches I've ever seen. That was incredible. But other than the last drive, which kind of does go back to the can Justin Herbert get you a touchdown when you have to have it, but we'll leave that for a later discussion. I think the Chargers are incredibly better than Tennessee. I think they win this game by a touchdown, so give me the Chargers here all day.
The only thing that prevents me from agreeing with you is the Chargers. Everything about them on paper looks like it should work. They have a defensive coach that just cannot figure out the defense.
Yeah.
They just don't seem to have any ability to stop anybody that's any good. They keep making personnel changes, and it doesn't seem to change. It's got to be schematic. I don't know. I guess we'll get a better gauge this week of what their defense looks like. Maybe Miami's just that fucking good.
I think it may have been a little bit of Miami's just that good.
But if Tennessee can keep this game close, I think I overrated Tennessee coming into the season. Derrick Henry doesn't look the same. He got out-touched by his supposed understudy. That doesn't bode well. Ryan Tannehill's still their quarterback. I don't know what I was thinking taking the over on that team. They made it so low at 7.5, you almost had to take it.
No, you didn't.
So I guess I'll run counter to that. I'll take the Chargers for the picks. I don't like it. I just don't like taking the Chargers. I always feel like they're that team that you're expecting, like, all right, -2.5 for the Chargers. Granted, they're on the road, but what difference does that make to the Chargers? They don't really have a home field.
Yep.
But it just feels like we'll be watching the games and it'll come across on the ticker that, like, Tennessee got some broken coverage touchdown and, they're up 7-0, and then, somebody fumbled and all of a sudden it's 10-0, and you're like, fuck. It's like now they're just going to hand the ball off, and then, now Ryan Tannehill's out of the equation, which when Ryan Tannehill's out of the equation, Tennessee's a pretty good team.
Yeah.
So you're bailing on Vrabel. Man, I guess that's something we should look at, because if that Tennessee team starts to fall apart, like Ryan Tannehill knows this is it for him.
And I'm not bailing on Vrabel. I think Vrabel is a good coach. I'm bailing on the front office that has not supported him with a better
That's
roster.
fair. That's a very fair way of approaching this. And I guess Tennessee is, just as rife. I mentioned in our preview podcast that there were a couple of teams that this could all go really, really bad. And, Tampa Bay has some expectations, Denver, Vegas. Tennessee's one of those teams that maybe they don't have a ton of expectations, but they've usually been in and around the playoffs. But if they go 5-12 this year, man, that actually wouldn't surprise me now. That seemed surprising to me a month ago.
Yeah, I don't know why, bud.
Fair enough. Up next, we have the Buffalo Bills, who just shat all over themselves on Monday night. The Bills find themselves as 8-point home favorites facing the Las Vegas Raiders. Jimmy, this line was 9.5 2 days ago.
Yeah.
That is a big move for a line like this. The Raiders are plus 310 on the money line. The Bills minus 400. Over under sits at 47. I should probably say this: the division leading Las Vegas Raiders. That game was an atrocity. It was such a bad football game. People who keep oh, Jimmy G, he just seems to win those games, and it's like, all right, I guess he wins those games, but those are shitty games, and I know it's a road win against a division opponent. I got a lot to say about old Sean Payton when we get to the Broncos game, which is going to be a minute because they play Washington, so that's pretty far down the list. Just nothing in that game told me that Las Vegas is any good, but I didn't see anything that told me maybe I saw some things that made me rethink what Josh Allen and Buffalo can be this year.
I don't know. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that Josh Allen didn't play well in that game. Those are the games where Josh Allen has historically came up short or the team has lost. There have been a couple big primetime games where he's played well and they've still lost. So I can't say it's always him playing poorly, but typically he hasn't performed well against the Jets anyway. And the Jets play zone defense, which traditionally Josh Allen isn't really good at because he just won't take the check down that's there. He wants to push it down the damn field when the guy's quadruple fucking covered. He still wants to make that throw, which is something he's got to learn from. Now, Vegas does play a little bit of zone as well, so they're going to have to deal with that. But I absolutely think Buffalo wins this game by 2 scores. Buffalo is 10 points better than Oakland or Vegas, sorry.
Or LA, whatever.
Or LA, whatever. The Raiders, the Bills are, I can't come out of week 1 saying that we were that wrong about Buffalo and Las Vegas. I don't believe that. Give me Buffalo here at -8.
I'm going to agree with you this week. I'm monitoring Josh Allen, but he's so up and down. It wouldn't surprise me if he comes out and has one of those, throws for 320, 2 touchdowns, runs for 50 and 2 touchdowns. Yeah. Vegas isn't very good defensively. I don't think what we saw of their performance against Denver was as much about them as it was. I think Russell Wilson is fundamentally broken as a quarterback, and he has a head coach and play caller who is calling a style of game that doesn't match what he does best.
Yep.
Up next, we have the Dallas Cowboys hosting the now Aaron Rodgers-less New York Jets. The Cowboys are 8.5-point favorites in this game, minus 430 on the money line. Jets plus 328. Over-under sits at 38.5. These are 2 really, really good defenses. And Dak Prescott does have a tendency to turn the ball over at times, especially against good defenses. But Zach Wilson is the quarterback of the New York Jets. It seems like a lot of points, but this Dallas defense is for real. And much like how San Francisco swallowed up Kenny Pickett, a quarterback who can be got by great defenses, that is definitely who Zach Wilson is. Jimmy, I I feel like this 8.5 should be too much, especially with the over/under at 38.5. But I think this Dallas team is good and for real.
Yeah, I think two of the smartest bets this week are the Cowboys here. I actually got them at -9 this morning.
Okay.
I like the Cowboys at -9, and I think the under's in play because I do agree. Aaron Rodgers getting hurt doesn't hurt the Jets defense. I believe the Jets defense is for real. What they did to Josh Allen wasn't a fluke. That's about the third time they've done that to him. They are a good defense, but Zach Wilson is going to have a miserable weekend. His mom needs to put on some clothes and get off of social media this weekend because it is going to be a bad day. Nothing good's going to happen for Zach Wilson. But yeah, I love the Cowboys at -8.5, -9, and I love the under here as well.
Up next, we have an AFC West showdown between the San Francisco 49ers and the LA Rams. The Niners are now 7-point favorites in LA. This line was 8 just 2 days ago. Yep. The Niners are -345 on the money line. The Rams +270. Over/under sits at 45.5. This is a really good example of what I talked about earlier with offenses being able to attack you in different ways. The Rams really surprised me last week with how good they looked on offense. The Niners did not surprise me with how good they looked on offense and defense. This 8 points seems like a lot is my first impression, Jimmy. What's your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I'm about the same with you there. I pivoted to the Rams Sunday about 11:30 when I really just kind of looked at their roster and what I thought they were going to try to do, and I was happy with it. It was I got a nice money line win there. We have a divisional game here. We know these teams play each other a lot. They're kind of similar in style and substance. San Francisco looked incredible in that game against Pittsburgh, no doubt there. But with Stafford healthy, the emergence of Kyron Williams and Puka Nacua, and you get the hook on the 0.5, I'm taking the Rams here.
Man, San Francisco has just been so good. It does seem like they need to be in line for one of those games where it's just a nail-biter. And I think Sean McVay knows how to attack this defense. This feels like kind of a slugfest game, not quite an AFC slugfest game. I think they get to the over. This feels like some 24-21.
Yeah.
That's where I feel this game goes to, although that wouldn't get you there because it's 45.5.
That's 45.5, so you'd still be short.
So you need what? 28, 21 would get you there.
Yeah.
Man, I feel like 7 touchdowns isn't that many for these two teams with how much firepower they have on offense.
I agree.
Have you seen? I did not see an update on Cooper Kupp, which is shame on me since he's on my fantasy roster.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine if he doesn't play. They're fine. Puka's got it handled. It's fine.
All right. Well, I will take the Rams. I like the over. I like the Rams with the points. I don't think they win this game. I think San Francisco pulls it out, but that 8 is a big number.
I agree. I don't think LA can win, but I definitely think they can stick this under a touchdown. Absolutely. I think San Francisco will probably pull through late, but I think this is gonna be a really, really good, another really good week 2 football game. And this is a big spot for the Rams too, to show that maybe last year was just because of all the injuries. Maybe they're not as
get a little more buy-in from the veterans.
Yeah, maybe they're not as dead in the water as everybody thought they were. So,
up next we have the Detroit Lions. They are hosting the Seattle Seahawks. The Lions surprisingly won in Week 1, and Seattle surprisingly lost to the Rams last week. The Lions are -220 on the money line. The Seahawks +180. Over/under sits at 47. This is another line that moved a full point. Detroit was favored by 6 2 days ago. Now they're favored by 5. It's just there's so many questions with this game. Detroit's at home. Their offense usually looks really, really good at home. And Seattle just got torched last week in ways we don't normally see Seattle get torched. Yeah. And maybe Geno Smith's turning back into a pumpkin, Jimmy?
Yeah. So I hate this so much, but Seattle looked like the team we thought they'd be last year when I believe I predicted them to not win a game.
Yeah. I thought they'd maybe get one or two. But I wasn't. Yeah, we were both pretty far off on this team.
So I'm being forced to take my new enemy of the Detroit Lions here. I'm not. I wouldn't actually make a wager on this game. I really don't know what it's going to look like. But just the 5, it feels like the Lions can win this thing by a touchdown. So I'm going to pick Detroit here.
I'm interested to see what Detroit's secondary looks like against those receivers. Maybe not as much true. How much
that is true.
What, Geno Smith does, because if he's not getting them the ball, then I guess it doesn't matter what they do. But at least just seeing, are they getting separation? Are they getting open and Geno's just missing them? Because they really, on one hand, you have people saying they really shut down Kansas City, but on the other hand, you have people like us that are like, Kansas City just dropped like half a dozen passes.
I mean, it's like when they dropped passes, the guys were wide open. They weren't dropping balls in coverage. Yeah. Like, Kadarius Toney was wide open.
I will also take Detroit home. I also kind of like the over, but I would also advise people to probably find somewhere else to bet. Although Detroit does play really well at home. So I think this is a good spot to maybe – I think they win this game. I just don't know if they – I'm not confident in them covering the 5, even though that was my pick. I think this is a sneaky good week to take Seattle as your loser team if you're in if you're in a pool like that, because you can't always just take Houston.
Yep.
Up next, we have a team I feel I was really right about and a team that I might be really wrong about. The Atlanta Falcons are hosting the Green Bay Packers. The Falcons are now -1.5. This was 2 a couple days ago. Falcons are -135 on the money line. The Packers are +115. Over-under sits at 40. Jordan Love might actually be pretty good, Jimmy.
Yeah, he looked good. So here's the thing for me. Give me Green Bay +1.5, and I love the Green Bay money line at +110. I think Green Bay wins this game. But this is going to be weird because for a couple years now, Green Bay has not been able to stop the run. And Arthur Smith told us that doesn't matter. They spent 2 first-round draft picks on Drake London and Kyle Pitts. They're both perfectly fine run blocking all game. So, the Falcons might only throw the ball 5 times in this game. They may just run it over and over and over again, but I still think Green Bay is the better team. But it's going to be weird to see a team that has an absolute strength in the Atlanta run game going up against a team whose weakness is stopping the run. That's going to be a little weird to watch, but I still love Green Bay in this spot. Everything I hoped I would see from Green Bay, I saw last week. When that game was positive game script, they shut Chicago down. Like I said, they're not good against the run, and that's what Atlanta does. But I'm still taking I like Green Bay at +1.5 and the money line here.
I am going to go the opposite. I'm going to take the Atlanta Falcons. I think they are doing what I talked about with Shanahan and McDaniel and McVay and attacking you in multiple ways. They're just going about it in a vastly different way. But they are still forcing defenses to make decisions in very quick, in a very, very short amount of time. And you talked about Green Bay not being good against the run. They've also traditionally struggled against gimmicky offenses. I think somewhere Clay Matthews Jr. is still spinning around trying to find Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah.
I like Atlanta here. I like that they're home. And I also I don't like that they took first-round picks on guys that they don't get the ball to enough. But I do like the fact that they realize their quarterback isn't good enough to get them the ball consistently enough. I like that their coach understands what he has, and he plays to the strengths of those players. I know he's not necessarily playing to the strengths of these first-round receivers and tight ends, but they got to get a better quarterback in there before they can start making use of those guys.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I absolutely do. If Atlanta won this game, I wouldn't be surprised, but I liked what I saw out of the Packers, and I think, if Atlanta has a couple drives where Green Bay can stop the run and get a couple 3-and-outs, I think those positions will flip the game for the Packers.
Fair enough. I also like the over here because I think Green
Yeah.
Bay's what we
They're
saw
going to
from
score
Jordan
points.
Love, he was able to orchestrate that offense really well. He was looking guys off. That's next level stuff. So he was definitely paying attention on the sidelines there, and he seems to have the talent to take to make this Green Bay offense run.
Yep.
Up next, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers hosting the Chicago Bears. The Buccaneers are 2.5-point favorites, minus 135 on the money line. The Bears are plus 115. 41 is the over-under. This line has moved a half point in the last 2 days. It's moved towards Chicago. I don't think Chicago's any good, Jimmy. I didn't think they were any good at the beginning of the season. And as much as I want Justin Fields to be good, I don't think he has the team around him, nor do I think he has an understanding enough of throwing the football to really make it work. I think Baker Mayfield may start 2-0, Jimmy.
Yeah, I feel completely differently about the Bears than you do. I do think they have a roster. I think they'll pull it together at some point. But after last week, I can't assume it's going to be this week. So I'm also taking Tampa and Baker going to 2-0.
Wow. At 3, this seems like a push, but at 2.5, I really like Tampa. This feels like a field goal game.
Yep. That's how the 2.5 makes it okay because
Yeah.
it feels like it's a field goal win.
Here's another line that has moved considerably in the last day and a half. The New York Giants are traveling to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. The Giants were favored by 5.5 2 days ago. Now that's down to 4. They are minus 220 on the money line. The Falcons are plus 180. 39.5 is the over-under. Nobody thought Arizona would be any good this year, and they kind of looked okay against a bad Washington team. Meanwhile, the Giants, man, they just got boat raced by the Dallas Cowboys. And the only reason I took a lot of glee in that is because there's a lot of Daniel Jones, New York biased. He's great. You guys are underrating him bullshit out there. And it was fun to watch them have to eat crow. What do you think happens in this shit show of a game, Jimmy?
Yeah, I think this is one of those games where it kind of looks at what we talked about. Washington is not a very good team. And that's the only reason Arizona looked, or at least not an elite level team, which is why Arizona looked somewhat confident. And the Giants, who are a mid-tier team, was playing one of the 3 best teams in the NFC. And I think that's why you had that. Give me the Giants all day here. Like, I think the Giants win this game by 9 or 10 points. Like, I'm not worried about this one at all. This is as close to a lock for me as I have this week. The Giants win this game.
Wow. I guess Arizona's not going to be able to do anything to Daniel Jones to make him uncomfortable. If he doesn't have receivers, he's going to be able to escape the pocket and run on them.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be able to keep him in the pocket.
That makes sense. And then he'll look good, and then all those same idiots will talk about how great he is because he beat a shitty Arizona team. Yep. All right, I'm with you. I like the 4. I even don't mind the 5.5.
Yeah.
So, these next 3 games is just a cavalcade of shitty, in my opinion, because we have the Denver Broncos hosting the Washington Commanders / Armada / maybe something else in the future. The Denver Broncos are 3.5-point favorites, minus 190 on the money line for them, plus 185 on the money line for the Commanders. Over-under sits at 38.5. Sean Payton, man, how are you going to start off with the onside kick against Vegas?
Come on, man. That's his calling card. He won a Super Bowl like that, man.
Yeah, you bust that out in a big moment to catch the other guys off guard, not in a fucking game against the goddamn Raiders.
It didn't surprise me. I don't disagree with you, but it didn't surprise me. It probably didn't surprise the Raiders either. I don't understand this. I really kind of confused by this one, but give me Washington at plus 3.5 and the money line at plus 160. I think the Armada are definitely better than the Broncos.
Yeah, I kind of think the same thing. I don't think this Denver team's good. I mean, Denver might be able to win this game, but 3.5, that's a big number to cover when Denver doesn't look like they're very good on offense, and they also don't look very good defensively either.
Yep.
They look fine. I mean, they're not awful, but I think Washington's going to be able to at least put some points on this team, and I don't think Denver's going to be able to score points.
Yeah, I think the under is definitely a great play here, too.
Up next, we have the Carolina Panthers hosting the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans are 3-point road favorites, minus 165 on the money line for them, plus 140 on the money line for the Panthers. 39.5 is the over-under. The Panthers kind of hung with the Falcons for a little bit, and then that game got away from them. Offensively, they look mostly bad, but New Orleans didn't look much better. That game against Tennessee was just ugly.
Yeah.
Derek Carr looks mostly like the guy we thought he is. He's fine, but he's not anything special. This is sort of one of those when in doubt, take the points, but I don't like either one of these teams, Jimmy.
No, I feel like this is going to be like a 9-9 tie. like I just I for the course of our pod, I'm going to take the Saints at -3, but this feels like a push. I don't see how either of these teams could get a lead of more than a field goal. So I don't know.
I do like New Orleans to win, so I guess I should just take New Orleans with the points. Carolina's offense doesn't look like it's going to be anything. It just doesn't look good. And I know Bryce Young's a rookie. He had a few moments, but he mostly looked overwhelmed by the NFL game.
Yep.
All right, and I said I was going to bet against the rookie quarterbacks consistently, so I will take New Orleans and lay the points. Of course, the betting against the rookie strategy does have its issues when two of those rookies play each other, which is our final game of the week, the Houston Texans hosting the Indianapolis Colts. The Texans are 1-point favorites, minus 120 on the money line for them. The Colts are plus 100. 39.5 is the over-under. I said before last week the only one of these three quarterbacks that scares me when I bet against them is the Colts with Anthony Richardson. I like the Colts here, Jimmy. I think they win this game. I see that plus 100, and I think I'm going to bet it.
Yeah, you're wrong, bud. I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do.
You are just blind to the Houston Texans being a bad football team.
But Houston's defense wasn't even that bad against Baltimore, and this ain't Baltimore, bud.
But I don't think Baltimore's offense knows really what they're doing, and I think Indianapolis is going to attack them very differently.
Really? Is that what you think? Okay. Well, first off, Richardson should still be in concussion protocol from that hit he took at the end of the game last week, without a doubt. But no, I think this is actually going to be a very competitive game. I'm absolutely taking Houston there. D'Amico Ryan's going to get his first win. But this is going to be I think this is actually a very important game for the AFC South and for both of these organizations to kind of see where they are in the pecking order. So this is a game that I do think actually matters. And I think it could be a pretty fun, exciting game. This will definitely be a game to have some shenanigans, without a doubt. There'll be something silly happen in this one. So
another reason I have some faith in Richardson is he seems to understand that he should throw the ball to Michael Pittman a lot, which is that's a good strategy if you're Anthony Richardson. That's the slate of games, Jimmy. We disagree on a few, we agree on quite a few. A lot of good games this week. We get an idea of right away of who's good and who's not.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I felt like we talked about it, like this week it's like good team versus good team and bad team versus bad team, which usually makes for compelling football and makes it harder to predict the future. So we're excited. Like I said, there are a few spots that I don't quite understand what the lines are, what the money lines are. So I'm attacking them there, but I think we're going to have some really good games for week 2. And I think there's going to be a lot of power rankings that are going to have the Jacksonville Jaguars right near the top after all is said and done this weekend.
Yeah, probably right there with Philadelphia
and San Francisco. If San Francisco,
because I do think they win that game, even though I don't think they win by 8.
Yeah, and if they would happen to be decisive against the Rams, it's really probably going to put them firmly as the Super Bowl favorite.
Yeah, and that would make them the team that I would look at as, okay, it doesn't seem to matter what the line is. We're just going to bet them, lay the points, and just go with it.
Yeah, and I actually like all of these division matchups in the early weeks.
Yeah.
Like I kind of like that. Like we have a lot of teams playing games that are actually going to matter at the end of the year this early. So I like that. You can't just kind of ease into the season. So I like that. I think there are some really good games this week. So I'm super excited for this slate.
Well, that will do it for this week's pod. I had a great week last week. I went 11-5 on picks, and I went 11-4-1 on my over-unders. Some years you just have it, so it would be nice to see that carry over into week 2. Maybe I'm on a heater, Jimmy. We'll see. We'll see after this week.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you definitely picked some great spots last week. Like I said, Sunday morning I pivoted to the Rams and Tampa on the money line, and both of those came through big for me. So those were big wins for me. So
right on.
But yeah, I do think there are actually a lot of unders that you could hammer this week. I do think there are a lot of low-scoring teams playing low-scoring teams.
Yeah, we saw that last week too. A lot of unders hit. I took a lot of unders, and that's why I did well. And that seems to be the direction we're going. Defenses are putting the clamps on offenses more than we've seen in the last few years.
Yep.
Well, we'll see if that trend line continues this weekend. We'll see what the AFC North looks like. Maybe the Browns will be by themselves heading into Week 3 at 2-0.
That'd be incredible.
Yeah, it seems like we might be entering a weird season, Jimmy. We might have to. We haven't had a lot of chaos the last few years, so we'll see if maybe it's a weird year, because those are usually good opportunities to make money. And thanks for joining me to break down everything in Week 2, Jimmy.
No place I'd rather be, brother.
I want to thank all of you for listening. For Jimmy Champ, I'm Evan Belfiore. Keep up with us every week for our NFL picks, and we will see you next time on No Broken Legs.